Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Cool Your Seats podcast. My name is Mr. Scott. Today, I think I'd like to do a much less focused podcast. It's the last podcast before the Christmas season. We're coming very close to Christmas now. It's full swing for the holidays, and well, I figure now's not the time to be focused on any specific thing, and well, can anyone really blame me? I mean, there's so much hustle and bustle that goes on during the holidays that it's very hard to just sit down and focus on one specific thing. There are so many different elements, if you will, that go into Christmas time. You have the traditions of your family, the meals being prepared, the decorations, and all the things that they do, keeping up with your family, keeping in touch with your family, sending out Christmas cards, going shopping for gifts, and all these other such, well, intricacies that go into their Christmas time celebration. And it's really something, you know. And I figure that that's really just, well, it's an excuse, one thing, to not be focused on any particular thing for this podcast, but it's also a very marvelous thing because it takes this whole entire perspective of the year that you're so focused on this one thing and this other thing and this other thing and get your goals done and go, and it's such a hassle this whole year. And then at the very end, you have this reprieve from focus where you have Thanksgiving and you have Christmas and you can step back from the focus and you can just relax a little bit. Obviously, you're not going to quit working during the holidays. You're still going to have certain days where you have to work, especially you retail workers out there. I deeply apologize and sympathize with you retail workers out there. You get the worst of it, but you may not always get a lot of time off during the holidays, but I think that we all agree that we're not as focused and driven as we are normally during the holiday season. And I don't think that that is a bad thing. Uh, I think that taking the time to step back from what you normally have to deal with is a very good thing. And taking that time to relax and let yourself go is also very good. Now, well, I guess this is the problem with an unfocused podcast. There's always the lack of topic always helps either promote or inhibit the length and the amount that I can talk. And I suppose in this instance it's really inhibiting my ability to talk, but nonetheless I carry on. There's a lot of Christmas music out there, and well, for one, it's a very curious phenomena. Um, do 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 do. Anyway, um, there's a lot of Christmas music out there, and it's very strange because you don't see this phenomenon with any other holiday, unless you say that sermon music is technically Easter music, but I don't classify it as such. In pop culture, Christmas has become such an ingrained thing that it's very normal for people to make songs about it during the Christmas season. To where a lot of artists, especially older artists, I'm looking at you, Frank Sinatra, have their own Christmas albums. Or if you'd like a more recent example, Michael Bublé or Matteo Bubbly, for those of you who are more into mispronouncing names that are very funny. Um, Regardless, the point stands that you have all of these very popular artists creating Christmas music, but nobody really does that for a holiday such as, let's say, Halloween or Thanksgiving. You don't have Thanksgiving music. I guess you could technically say that there's a lot of Halloween music out there, but at the same time, I'd argue that it isn't on the same level of Christmas music. And everyone has a different preference for Christmas music, and, well, I'll admit that my own preference lies towards swing and big band Christmas music than a lot of the different forms of Christmas music out there, but, well, the point stands that there's a lot of different types of Christmas music, and you don't really find that with, say, Valentine's Day. You don't get a lot of Valentine's Day music specifically about Valentine's Day. Sure, a lot more romance songs might be coming out near Valentine's, but there isn't exactly Valentine's Day music. And you could try to argue, well, Valentine's Day is a much lesser holiday. It's not on the same level as Christmas. But is it really? I mean, Christmas is still just a one-day holiday um, that happens during a month. Granted, that month is a little bit more special because it's the end of the year, but it's just a one-day holiday. And yet we've given so much importance to Christmas that it's it's able to have, well, music of its own that a lot of other holidays don't have. Although I guess the argument that it's only a one-day holiday is pretty, well, it's a pretty fruitless endeavor given how much earlier and earlier Christmas has been creeping through the year. Feels like not even Halloween takes precedence over Christmas anymore. You could find Christmas decorations out in September, it almost feels like. Um, but c'est la vie. That's Christmas for you. Um, there's a lot of traditions that also go with Christmas, and I suppose this sort of ties into Christmas songs as well. A lot of families have one or two songs that they will not celebrate Christmas without, and I can fully understand that. For myself and Mrs. Scott, I believe that a couple of our songs are, say, White Christmas by the Drifters or Bing Crosby. I'm much more a fan of Bing Crosby's version. She's more of a Drifters fan. I guess that gives you a read on our personalities, but, well, I'm not sure you'll be able to do much with that. At the same time, my extended family, they love All I Want for Christmas Is My Two Front Teeth, and I Want a Hippopotamus for Christmas, and those are two songs that they will never celebrate Christmas without. In the same vein, you have a lot of other things that people will refuse to watch, or refuse to not watch on Christmas. Movies especially fall into this category. A lot of people will not end Christmas without watching Die Hard at least once. I am not one of these people. A lot of people can't stand Christmas without um, A Christmas Story or Elf or, well, The Night Before Christmas or, any of the claymation ones I seem to see a lot are traditional for people's Christmas times, and, well, that's a wonderful thing. And it's wonderful to see that such old cartoons can still hold relevance through the medium of culture. Just as well, a lot of people have a traditional holiday meal. I'm not sure about anyone else, but for my family, our traditional holiday meal is this thing that we have called pants, um, which is flank steak that is butterflied out. Of course, we're bad at the butterflying bits, so it just comes out looking like jeans, hence the name pants, but coated in panko breadcrumbs, and I believe a couple of other spices. I can never remember it exactly, which is why I have it written down, but and then you take all that and you either fry it or you put it in the oven. I can't remember exactly, but it gets really crispy and really nice, and it's a wonderful sort of finger foody thing. Um, yeah, just as well, it's wonderful to accompany it with other forms of finger foods. Um, Things like, say, like mini corn dogs or those admittedly very crappy tacos that you get in the frozen section at your local Walmart or Stater Brothers. I'm sure a lot of you know exactly what I'm talking about. But the point stands that a lot of people have these traditional holiday meals. For some families, they go all out hardcore on holiday meals, where they'll have a big turkey or a big ham and a bunch of different additives and, potatoes and all different forms, rolls and gravy, and it's wonderful. It's like a second Thanksgiving, but for a lot of people, that's just unrealistic for them, and frankly, I don't blame them because that is an all-day meal that people are preparing. But it's wonderful to see, you know. Um, of course, there's always the traditional present opening time. Uh, I'm not sure about what other traditional time there is other than in the morning to open presents, but I'm sure that there are a couple of you out there who don't open their presents until, let's say, the afternoon or something of that variety. Uh, I'd almost be tempted to call you psychotic if you didn't open your presents in the morning. But well, to each their own. And those differences, in culture are always wonderful to see. Um, Of course, a lot of this also depends on socioeconomic status and yada yada yada. There's so many factors that go into Christmas traditions. It's crazy, frankly. I'm sure a lot of you have traditional Christmas decorations. Maybe a box of ornaments that have been in your family for a couple of generations that you always take the time to put up on your Christmas tree. Maybe you have a different tradition when it comes to the Christmas tree. You either go out each year to pick out a fresh tree, or maybe you have one of those retail trees, the fake ones that spread out and they have the big metal pole and they're pre-lit and everything, but it's been in your family for a while and you just want to keep going with that. And well, frankly, that's a marvelous thing to have traditional Christmas decorations because, well, they're very heirloomy, and they show a real deep connection to your family. Um, I suppose I should explain. A lot of those traditional hand-me-down things, such as ornaments and decorations and stockings and trees and maybe even stuffed animals if you're really that far back, well, they they um they carry with them a lot of sentimental value to the people who have them. And if they don't carry that sentimental value to you, I'd really like you to take a moment and just think about it. These ornaments or stuffed animals or whatever have you have been in your family for quite a while. Think back, grandmother, great grandmother, even great great grandmother, or even further. Uh, all the all these generations back have been using the same ornaments, and these ornaments have lived hell, longer than you have, certainly, but they've lived for so long, and they've always adorned your family's tree. That has to make you feel at least a little bit special about them. And if it doesn't, well, there's not much that I can say or do about that. But a lot of people do have these traditional Christmas decorations, and they have a lot of sentimental value to them. And having sentimental value, I think, is a very great thing. It's very grand. It's very personal. Having something of sentimental value really pulls in this sort of nostalgic, loving vibe from people, and you'll see them interact with that object differently than they would if they were to interact with, say, a $2 ornament that they just bought like yesterday. And watching how much more care they put into putting these sacred, if you can even call them that, ornaments on the tree it's really something. Just as well, a lot of people have traditional Christmas, well, I'm not sure you can call them traditional per se, but they have people that they'll send out their Christmas cards to every year. And some people just go for a very generic, basic Christmas card with, something that you'd get at the Hallmark or something like that, where you grab, a season's greetings card or 50, and you grab all the corresponding envelopes and you buy them, you sign them off, um, Merry Christmas to you, or Season's Greetings to you, and then you sign your name, and then your family signs their names, and you ship them off to the rest of your family. I'm thoroughly convinced that this is time of year is the time when the post offices really see the most use, both for delivering packages that carry presents for all of you online Christmas shoppers out there, but also for delivering Christmas cards and things of other sentimental value to you as a person, and for sending those things off. Some people are more detached from their family, and maybe they only have a couple Christmas cards to send out, just the odd Christmas card to like their mother and or their grandmother and things like that. But the point stands that it really still represents a sense of togetherness. Of course, some people are so attached to their family that they have a very big family-wide Christmas celebration where everybody brings in admittedly less presents, um, for one person, but they bring in one present per person, or one present per person in their family who they actually haven't disowned. And they'll bring them in, and you'll set them under the tree, and you'll notice that it takes up half the living room, but that doesn't matter because you're not using the living room anyway. And it's a great thing to be just that connected with your family. Even though I'm sure it brings up a lot of trials and tribulations at Christmas dinner. Maybe too many people too eager to talk politics, or too many people too eager to say what they feel, even though what they feel offends half the people at the table. And, well, that's their prerogative, and I'm happy to all of you who don't have to deal with that, but I do sympathize with you who do. Um, I would like to know in the the comments. I'm not sure if you can call them Christmas comments at this point, but the comments section. What your guys' favorite holiday tradition that you've had is. I think it'll be wonderful to share with with the community that we have here, my friends, Christmas traditions, and you'll get to see and widen your worldview a little bit. You'll get to look at all the different people and all the different holiday traditions that they might have, and, well, the longer this podcast goes on, maybe I'll revisit this idea. Maybe when I'm a bit bigger with my following, or maybe, just at any time. I don't really do this for fame, in case anybody couldn't tell. I do it for a different reason. Um, I do it to help people. I guess consider this me pulling back the curtain a little bit. Although I'm not exactly sure that I'm as grandiose as the Wizard of Oz. Um, I do this podcast a lot to help people, to give advice to those who need it, and to be a helping hand to those who ask for it. On top of just being a soothing voice to listen to, maybe when you're working hard, or even if you're just, well, trying to get to sleep at the end of a rough day. I hope that I, as Mr. Scott, can really help you all with that. Um, but anyways, back to the holidays, and I'll push the curtain back to its original position, covering me again. Um, I don't know if any of you have noticed, but a lot of the holiday times, it comes hard to talk about anything really without mentioning brands and brand names, or store names, specifically Hallmark and Walmart and Amazon. All these very big, monopolizing corporations really just, it's very hard to discuss the holidays without bringing them into the fold. And while I'm not going to preach to you about corporations or anything like that, I find it interesting to at least bring up the fact that it's really difficult to talk about the holidays without bringing them into the fold. And I'd highly suggest a challenge to all of you, if you can really consider it a challenge. But this holiday season, for the next little while Christmas is still going, try to keep conversations going without bringing up any brand names or any store names. Don't bring up Hallmark, don't bring up Walmart, don't bring up Amazon, don't bring up anything like that. And just see how much more difficult it might make it to not discuss the holiday season without bringing brand names into things. And I think it'll probably tell you something about the world around you. Um, but speaking of corporations and their necessity to the holidays, well, let's take a word from our sponsor. This episode of Cool Your Seats is sponsored by StoreSignPros.com. If you are a business owner of any variety and you are in need of a sign, any type of sign in any color, style, with any text, StoreSignPros.com is your one-stop shop for any and all solutions. Their simple-to-use interface allows you to very quickly, concisely, and cleanly get across any sign in your imagination. Any graphics, any style, any color, any size, any variety of sign that you could possibly need, StoreSignPros.com is your go-to. Go to StoreSignPros.com and use the special promo code CYS10 for 10% off your purchase of any sign in their shop. That's right, you can get 10% off any purchase of any sign in the StoreSigns.pro or StoreSignsPro.com, shop when you use promo code CYS10. C cool Y your S seats 10 on StoreSignPros.com for 10% off. We here at Cool Your Seats, and especially I, Mr. Scott, would like to thank StoreSign Pros for sponsoring this video, and now back to the podcast. Well, what a lovely sponsor they are, and I'd always like to thank them for sponsoring the Cool Your Seats podcast. And, if any of you would like to take up the offer, it's always there. Irregardless, it's funny. There was a lot of debate that I was hearing earlier about that word, irregardless. A lot of people saying that ear and less, just one of them should be gone, because it's grammatically redundant and incorrect, and there was a lot of bickering and fighting over it, as if colloquial terms and slang that people use and misuse languages with um, really deserve that much time, energy, and, well, breath devoted to them. Um, it just seems silly and ridiculous to me to argue over something so trivial and mundane, but I suppose that a lot of people just find fun in debate. And hey, if you want to strengthen arguments that you have, maybe when you're sitting in the hot seat, um, a friendly debate with your friend or your neighbor or your family over Christmas dinner, say, um, can really help strengthen your argumentative skills. Um, or if you have a local club that you might be able to join, there are a lot of debate clubs all over the place that can help strengthen your argumentation. But uh, don't don't do it to argue very hot button political topic. Don't do it just to argue hot button topics. I'd implore you to almost never argue hot button political topics, not because I don't think that people should be informed of that sort of thing, but because I feel that arguing creates a rift in people. Discussing, yes, that's fine, and it doesn't really create such a rift with people because you're just discussing it. You're laying out your opinions and you're listening to the other side's opinions, and at the end of the day you both walk away more informed. But a lot of people hear a differing opinion and they decide to argue with it. But that's not what I'm here for. I'm sorry for ranting about that. That is not the intention of this show. Instead, well, there's a lot of other things to talk about, um, especially during the holiday season. A lot of you are dealing with some frightfully cold weather, and we are not talking normal cold weather, although I'm sure for some of you it might seem normal, but we are talking snowstorms that seem like blizzards, and, well, weather so cold that you don't even want to leave your house. And, well, it's always a Christmas time, I suppose, hope that it snows, that there is to quote the song, a white Christmas. But a lot of people just dislike what comes with the quote unquote white Christmas. A lot of people very much dislike the cold weather and having to shovel out their driveways, although I don't think shoveling out the driveway is exactly a very modern thing to do. But at the same time, I don't believe that snow is all that bad and the cold weather is all that bad. But I don't think it's for the same reasons that you would want to argue it's bad. I think snow can be very much good in the fact that it kind of keeps you in your house. If you have to go out, then yeah, obviously snow sucks and nobody should ever really have to deal with it. But when you don't have to go out, and especially if you have, say, a real fireplace and chimney, or even if you have one of those fake little stoves that have the display of a fire, I think that taking that time to just sit by the fire, and if it's a real fire, especially smelling the nice aroma of a good roaring fire, um, really just recenters yourself. It's an almost meditative moment, in especially for people that don't meditate. I think that those moments are some that we should treasure the most. Um, and you get to look out at this white blanket covering the world, and it changes a lot of the perspectives on the world, because instead of seeing a lot of the harshities of the landscape and a lot of the dullity that comes with the colors that you might normally associate with your area surrounding you, you have this vibrant white sheet covering it all and providing a much different view of a world that you might normally have considered mundane and unappealing. And, well, it's those moments that I think that a lot of people should treasure more, myself included. I definitely need to learn how to, or when to, stop and, well, to quote the popular saying, smell the roses, even though around this time of year the roses are in fact dead. Um, but speaking of that sort of fireplace, lovely time, I'd like to end today's episode of Cool Your Seats with, well, with a fantasy, an idea, a world in which one may call their own to provide you comfort and tranquility, or a safe spot to recover the peace of mind that you might need. Um, until the next episode, when I can provide you with another one, maybe you can hold it close to your heart. We'll open up the scene with a fireplace. You're sitting across from me in an armchair. We're both taking in the aromas and scents that are associated with sitting next to a fireplace. We've both got some homemade hot chocolate in our hands, our mugs filled, and our hearts set just the same. Maybe we're sitting there in nice little blankets, maybe even Snuggies if you remember those. And we're sitting there enjoying the wonderful sounds of the fireplace. We're swapping stories of our pasts, and, maybe I'll tell you a tale of one time that I went driving and got stuck in the snow, and you'll fire back with a time that you went four-wheeling, but one of your wheels broke down and you had to desperately scramble for some way to contact somebody, and I'll shoot back with the story of the time that we got Celeste, and when I mention her name, the Malamute in the corner pokes her head up and looks over as if to say, "You talking about me?" And I tell you the story of when we first got her, and the story of training her, and maybe you have a pet and you shoot back with your own story of that variety. Or maybe you don't. Either way, we're sitting there by this wonderful fire, trading stories of pets and pasts long gone, and maybe then Mrs. Scott will walk into the room and wave hi to us, and we'll wave hi back, and I'll reach over and grab a photo album, and I'll show you all these different photos that I have developed of all these different times, and maybe a younger me, and a younger Mrs. Scott, a younger Celeste, and we just sit there and enjoy the tranquility of a moment with a friend, sipping hot cocoa by a roaring fire on a chilly Christmas evening. Now, I don't know about the rest of you, but I'd quite like to share that fantasy. And until next time, when I may provide you with the next fantasy or the next Cool Your Seats podcast, I'd like to wish you all a good night and Merry Christmas.